All right. Welcome to our last but not least talk of this day. I'm very happy to introduce you to Gabriela Georgieva, who is team lead data and analytics at our portfolio company Home Day. She's going to tackle a rather, I would say, challenging topic on how to scale down your data team. And very curious to hear about the talk. Welcome on stage.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me all. Thank you for coming to the last talk of the day. And as actually already introduced, this is a quite controversial topic and can be even a bit touchy. So I will share mainly from my experience. Also, I'm avoiding sharing any really private information that might put me or the company in a certain situation, but more of a toolkit that can be or used at some point, because this will have helped me maybe navigate also this situation if I had it on hand. So first of all, a little bit about myself. My name is Gabriela. I have experience as a hands-on analyst in different industries with all the different analyst titles. And currently, from more or less like 2 years, I'm leading the team in Homeday. Homeday is a real estate company based here in Germany, offices in Berlin and Cologne, but mainly operating German market. Apart from my full-time job, I have like a really big passion on learning, coaching, and I also work as a lecturer in a coding bootcamp called Levagon. So that's more of a side hustle, let's say. But will come a bit linked later on also to how I look at this challenge and the way that at least I focused on it and try to solve it within my company and organization. So first of all, I will try to put us a little bit into context, understanding why are we in this situation and why do we even have to face this problem of scaling teams down. This can reflect definitely to a data team, and I will focus specifically on that one. But if you're managers of other sort of branches in the business, that can be also like really applicable. I will talk also of the heuristics of scaling up or down in this case and how those can be comparable. Also a bit like the balance and the moral challenge between how to maintain productivity in an environment like that and other ways of reducing costs that we can explore also on. There I could give probably a different complete 45 minutes talk, but I will just focus on the high level. And last but not least, how to keep the motivation also going. So first of all, to understand a bit the current situation, we have faced in the last years opportunities and pressures from the external market that shifted the focus of the data departments from rather hyper growth to scaling down. Some of those opportunities could be like, okay, remote working, but also increase on data privacy. We have some pressure like from the market with COVID-19, for example, that many countries reduced their GDP. Also, money became more expensive. So venture capital investors and other interested investors that before will borrow us money right now need more information about how we will spend it more efficiently to do that. Apart from that, specifically on the data sector, we have much more regulation regarding how to use the data, what we are allowed to do with it and what not. Before, we might have generated some profit from ways that right now are not even legal. So we have GDPR compliance, for example, here in Europe, or CCPA in California. All this context is switching somehow the projects even that we are working on in the data departments from being profit oriented to more like, okay, how are we gonna optimize our costs? I remember like years ago, like we will build data products in my organization. That will be the core product that will drive growth. One of the main products that is built is a price atlas, so comparing prices per square meter of properties in different regions in Germany. Right now, many of the projects that we are working on is on how can we, with the same resources, operate in the same scale so that we work smarter. Just from the projects that we have within the department, we can already see how the business is looking at the department. So we turned from being a profit center to more a cost center. So even trying to reduce within the department as well. So putting ourselves in that context is, now the question of, okay, how do we scale teams down or up? We are in this situation, we have to do it. And now it's just a matter of how do we address the issue. Here I wanted to bring the similarity of how we're scaling teams up, because it's like somehow, on the theory part, really similar on scaling down. The main difference will be, and it's actually like pretty similar, when you're growing a team or when you have like really little resources, you would like to have more generalists in your team. People that are able to not only be a data engineer, but also be a data analyst, be able to communicate with stakeholders. The bigger the team or even the organization, you will have more specialized roles. You will indeed need this niche person that only performs that task. And they are great at it, and maybe it took you forever to find them. It was like really difficult. Maybe a data science that is specialized in marketing specifically to perform the best attribution model. You found that person. But right now, maybe it's not the situation in which you require that specific skill alone. Let's go through an exercise of building a data team, let's say. The part that we can argue here forever, but this is just an example. Initially, we would like to probably see what tooling we are going to put in place, like the data lake, the connection with ETLs, also what visualization tools we will use, and so on, and some of the best profiles to advise us on that and even build it will be probably a data engineer. You can argue someone more senior that has also different skills. But if I have zero employees in my data department, I would like to start from somewhere and someone to advise me on all that. Here, I'm using color coding to express the skills of a person. So the more colors, the more skills they will have, and the more generalist that they will be. The less color, the more specialized. So we start from that, then we will have like also, okay, we want to perform data modeling more, also some analysis, because our stakeholders are impatient to see the results of the work that we are doing. Later on, we will start putting some structure finally here. We will need someone to lead the team. We will need also more power, human power on probably the dashboarding side and the reporting side. And we will continue this way until we build a really robust structure of a data department. As you can see, the colors are starting to differentiate themselves. We will have some of them repeated, like data analysts with comparable skills and engineering, analytics engineers, for example, also with similar ones. If we were to follow the same strategy, we could use it reverse. And in this case, if I had to reduce a team size, I will also try to combine some of those skills and try to reduce it and concentrate it. This might sound really cold. We'll go into the more emotional part later, definitely. But at the end, we will end up by having, again, a really similar structure from which one we started building in the beginning. But in this case, these people will be empowered or having like more of those skills as generalists than specifically to perform special tasks. Here, of course, I'm not saying that it's going to be the same 3 people, for example, that we started building the organization with. Those most likely have also evolved in upper positions. We helped them grow as well, and so on. But just wanted to make the comparison here between basically scaling up and scaling down and how they can be comparable at some point. In this environment, okay, now the challenge of maintaining productivity, right? So the first part that I want to bring here on the panel is also there is a change, right, in the full organization and in the team. So acknowledging that and being able to identify where each employee is, at which part of the curve, will help us also navigate that. So initially, if everyone is on the side of the shock part that they are still trying to process the information, we cannot come and directly be like, hey, we have to be productive and here is the plan for the next week and this is what we will focus on. This will come on the times specifically following the curve. Some people will require a little bit less, some people a little bit more. But definitely something that helped me, and also I try to somehow replicate towards my team, is like keeping some sort of focus. There is a paradox of this productivity paradox that fewer people relate exponentially, like in the same factor, to what the output is going to be or the outcomes from the team. This is not necessarily true because also the smaller the team, the smaller the complexity, and you can reduce in many of the other parts of it. Being transparent about the expectations, not only towards your team, but towards the full company. You cannot, with 70% less resources, deliver the same amount of work. Maybe you're able to do 50%, not like same reduction, but this has to be also communicated outwards. What helped me a lot is like having this clarity right after a round of reduction happens. Is like, okay, what's next? Maybe we don't have a long-term goal set yet, but the what's next for the next month, next weeks, immediate steps that we can have clear in our head how to proceed through this process. And last but not least, here comes like about the core competences. So what has to be indeed addressed and still addressed by the data team, and what can be addressed by other teams? I will go a little bit more in depth here by how can we delegate outwards. So some of the tasks that we've been performing as a department, maybe it was just because we had more availability. We're training our stakeholders that way, but it's not nothing that has to be maintained that way. The part of like maintaining this productivity can be really challenging, and also not to say that this is the only way that we are trying to make our department more efficient. There are definitely different ways of cost reduction, and I'm not saying this is only like, okay, we somehow try to shrink the people artificially. It can naturally happen by people finding new opportunities and not replacing them, or by people even transitioning to different departments within the same organization. So there are different ways on how this situation can be placed. Strategies of cost reduction here, like I'm mentioning two. The first one is a bit what I mentioned regarding delegating outwards. And the other one is also on software cost reductions. I will expand a little bit on each of them, but as mentioned, I could give a separate talk just on this. Not gonna go too much in depth. But in our case, for example, cost reduction on the software usage has been really heavily implemented already from the past. Just during this year, not only reviewing the contracts with existing tools that we have, you can imagine like in business intelligence or in data departments, tools have an extremely high cost compared to other more operational departments, for example. And those can be also used for automating some of the processes that before you will do them manually within your team. So to expand further on this part, I'm giving also some examples of how we looked at some of those software costs within my company. So we reviewed our ETL tools, switching from Fivetran, partially migrating some of our traffic to Airbyte, which is like open source tool. You can definitely also account the human cost inside of that. Reducing licenses, definitely when you're reducing also the amount of employees that you have in certain departments, or the usage of those licenses, if it's like a daily usage, finding alternatives, sending snapshots or other ways of automating that don't require a direct access to the visualization tool. We also canceled some contracts indeed of tools that were aiming us to put for success in the future, that we saw we are not there yet. So having this fancy tool that will allow us to understand all the lineage between all the tables and be like self-service for all the departments might not be our priority right now. We also like combined with our DevOps teams, like optimized on the storage, on the cloud storage side, and try to co-share certain tools that we have, with different departments. All that already bring us to quite some savings at the end. To be mentioned, those savings are not immediate because you have contracts signed, and only after those expire you can actually materialize it or monetize it. On the other side, like the delegating outwards, here a good example is, for example, our marketing team is one of our main stakeholders, and we will dedicate many of our resources towards supporting them. So the way that we try to educate our stakeholders so they can be self-sufficient and not coming all the time with requests to us, so saved time for us and also for them. So this was a way also of reducing drastically our load, and you are then delivering same value or similar value with less amount of people as well, by just educating them and giving them access to performing those tasks that then before were blocked by you. There are also here like when exactly we will delegate outwards. Mainly when the task is like really time consuming, but doesn't add a lot of value. So maybe this is something really important for the marketing department, but for us or how we see it as added value to the business might not be that relevant. So we try to then delegate outwards those tasks. If there is something that requires concrete specialization, we had that, for example, with the migration of from Universal Analytics to GA4. We didn't have that knowledge in-house, and we saw that spending the resources from our side would basically block us from doing other things. So looking for this help also outside by freelancer support or any other way could also help you. Yes, it's going to be a cost for the short term, but then you will be released from that. You're not going to hire this specialist full time and maintain them in your team. And the last part is like, yeah, if there is something that is like really costly and you can maybe automate if it's something like really repetitive. For example, automation we used a lot for accessing certain tools for reports that are looked once a month, and you don't need to spend then the money on the license. Going a bit to the brighter side, let's say here, is in this environment, how do you also maintain some motivation within the department? It's, first of all, I will say really important to be transparent. So people don't like to be lied on. So just being honest about how is the situation and how things look like will bring also the team to trust everyone like much better. I think on that sense, yeah, my company and the management from my company has been really transparent, and that really helped. Also providing opportunities to learn and grow. So a situation like this where you end up somehow reducing 70% of your team, can be really frustrating, but can also bring some opportunities for other people to grow and shine. So don't disregard those ways of growing and learning, and also focusing certain time that people can dedicate to this. In our case, for example, bi-weekly, we have like some sort of data analytics conferences. We share challenges there, maybe new technologies. I also share sometimes things that I learned from the bootcamp, new tools that we are using there that could be replaced and are like less costly than others. And we try also to see like if anyone is interested into learning something new, not specifically for our job, but for their future job, also put it somewhere there in place. Um, Maintaining this clarity on the goals, it's really important because people can lose focus really quickly. So with a situation like this, you're like, yeah, what do I do next? How do I refocus? I'm not motivated anymore. Having clear steps and to-dos will basically remove that burden from you. You already know what you have to do, and that will come more from your managers, like rather from the company or middle managers, but that clarity has to be there. Recognizing, basically, this is as any other effort, but in this situation, some people will come to the point that they are covering responsibilities for 3 different roles that were before. Recognizing that effort, also the outputs that they generate and how this is contributing to the team and to the company. That's really important for keeping the wheel also going. And lastly, also help moving forward. So if there is someone that indeed wants to move forward, you're also there to support them by providing any of the resources that are there. If it's like networking, if it's like contacts, if it's resources to learn something, you're also there for that. I want to finally like sum up all this by saying that, okay, those are no no points that you cannot take during any time. All of those key takeaways can be performed in any stage of the team. So having like clear focus and goals, being transparent at communicating, having this optimization always in mind. In this situation, they come as key and crucial, but you definitely can apply them within your team along a healthy time of economics, or even when you're building them, not only when you're scaling down, but when you're building them from scratch. So I think that's mainly from my end. And I wanted to open the stage because initially I wanted to do this as a panel discussion because I was really curious about opinions from others. And yeah, if anyone wants to share some experience or just ask any questions, that will be amazing.
Cool, thank you so much. I'm going to pass around the microphone so we can hear you better. Who wants to go ahead? Sorry, we have to, it's better for the recordings.
Yeah. So how do you connect the pieces of strategy to vision of your team and then the roadmap? Because we see that when you had a larger team, it would have been differently connected, and now there is a change that has happened, and no one has anything like a control over it. So it's more about adjusting and adapting to that. Do you lose some confidence in the team as a lead during that time, or how do you keep them motivated that the vision of the team stays intact and it's not distorted anymore?
Yeah, that's really valid question. We had a strategy in place for 2026. Yes, that's a way to think in the long term. In the future, you need this sort of vision that is over there to guide you. A lot of it did not change as the core principles. The way that you're getting to it, that changes drastically, let's say. And that's the part of our job, how to communicate it. Sometimes, yeah, it can happen that it completely disregards, because it's like, okay, whatever we wanted to achieve now is not feasible, it's not actually possible. But in our case, what happened was just the way of getting there, maybe the speed on getting there, that changed, but not the end goal that we had in mind. Yeah.
Hi. I've been in a n- not so drastic, let's say, situation, but kind of similar. What I found challenging was, first of all, if there's layoffs, you can, in a way, never promise that this has been the final round of layoffs. There's not going to be any more. I found it really hard to stay transparent and honest, but also kind of communicate that I can't promise this. I'd be curious how others have maybe experienced this, or you.
Yeah.
And if I can ask a second question is, how do you do the talks with the people who you decide should stay on? Not just motivating them, but also explaining them why they could stay. Because I found those talks kind of astonishingly difficult in a way. Whereas you'd think, okay, well, they don't have a problem, right? They stay, but it does something to those people too. So,
Yeah. So first, going with the first question, yeah, you cannot really promise this is going to be a one-time thing. Like, often this is communicated from the company higher level, and they do stay that way because they also believe it. So it's a way of, no, this is exceptional and will happen only once. We want to go through it, and if we don't go through it, well, I mean, there is nothing else to do, right? And then it happens again and again and again. Something like learned from experience is to have in your mind that, yeah, you work for a startup, and yes, this is a challenge that is out there. And the same way that you join a startup and there are some difficulties and some challenges, but also some exciting moments about it, this is also one part of it.
do you also tell that to people when they join?
Yes.
That's
Yes,
good, I
indeed.
think, because otherwise it comes across as, yeah, I wasn't actually aware that it
No.
was so risky.
Happened more than once, someone joining, and on the first day, like, there were rounds and they were maybe not affected, or yes. So yeah, that's something that definitely I state, at least me personally. I don't know how other managers do it. And for the second question that you ask, if you can remind me again.
It was about conversations you have with the
Yeah,
people who
with the people that
stay.
stay. Yes. I'm normally a really direct and honest person. So if someone asks me, hey, what is the reason, like, why this person and why that? Whenever has been my choice, even because it's not always your choice, you can be advised, like an advisor for that. I will be really pragmatic regarding, like, okay, what skills are needed in the team, what is the goal short term of the company, and how this fits within the organization. And there is nothing like personal to it, to be honest. Like, if it's um, because often people takes it really personal. It's like, why me? Why at this point? And why so on? So I try to give the full picture, because often we only see our case and we forget about the whole other setup, that there are so many other departments that they are suffering through the same. And also, it's not only our department, right? Like, how the company wants to operate and what is the full strategy of it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, so I I think you are completely right in stressing that management needs to be transparent and honest when bad things are happening. I have been in some companies and sometimes it's not the case.
Mhm.
Do you think this can be fixed? And I have, yeah, maybe I have an example to share, and I'm not sure if it worked. So I worked in a company, and there was a round of layoffs, and the highest management tried to communicate is like these are like levers. They just announce. I mean, there is some companies who not even talk about it. Some people just leave and nobody talks. That's, I think, the worst example. Then there was a company who talked about the whole team as leavers, as if they were like happily leaving. And so I knew the management personally, and I knew that they made up their mind to try to do this quickly and not make a big fuss about it, but it immediately backfired. And the week after, they explained in more detail what happened. And personally, I thought at least this was a good move to be a bit more transparent, but then it also showed that the first move was not the best. So maybe you have an example to share where something similar happened, or whether you think this can be fixed at all if the trust is lost.
I think comes a lot with the personality of the management team per se, right? So it's an agreement between around how they want to communicate. Maybe one person agrees, another not, but they take a unified decision of how to go ahead with the situation. In my specific case, I think things improved definitely. Like every time, like a similar situation happened, because you also learn from it, and also you're more aware of how the reality. Let's say in this case, I don't know if that's the best way of addressing the issue, but definitely like being more transparent, at least about what is happening and about what you know, that will help bring trust to the people. What you don't know it. It's about, yeah, is there going to be a next round? Is there going to be this? How are we going to be doing in 2 years from now? This you might not know it right now, and it's also fine to say we will work towards those things, because you as a leader and a role model for so many people have to maintain also some rigid view for the company. But being honest about that part in the beginning really helps, and happens in a common round. It's not like the decision of one person, and can be driven by one person pushing more into that round, but there must be like some internal influence into it. Can happen also bottom up, indeed. If the company, after they shared like the more honest feedback, they're like, hey, we really appreciate this. We would like to be given this information on an earlier stage and not afterwards. That can also be shifted, is by speaking up. Often we take decision on others, like what's best for others, without knowing it really, and not maliciously. So in this case, if also the workers speak up and they say, hey, we will appreciate having more transparency, then at least you know that there is some communication, and next time it can be done better. Yeah.
Hi. So about the heuristics of change, you showed this diagram with these positions and stuff.
Yep.
And yeah, to me it seems very like role oriented, not very human focused. So what is your experience with that? Did you also do it like this in your team, or would you recommend it like this, or would you like recommend other factors to factor in as well?
Yep. Definitely, there are many personal factors, but at the end, my role is also to keep certain performance in a team that helps an organization drive forward. What personal factors are taken into account there to do that or not? That's also somehow strategic, right? Just because there is the decision of, oh, we would like those profiles to stay or so, doesn't mean that will happen, right? So it's not all in your hands. It's not at all. So if you want to even like incentivize some people to stay and others to leave, doesn't mean that that will happen. So this is just the same way that you're building teams, and you, oh, I would like to have this profile and that, but then you're not able to find them in the market, or whatever you find is okay, has different skills. The same way happens when you're trying also to scale down a team. There are some ideas, some goal, but then so much can happen in between. Yeah. And the human side, as I mentioned, like I was keeping it away from that structure part, but definitely it's also there. Yeah. I'm really happy that there is participation in that.
Yeah, maybe I can share some experiencing on scaling down as well.
Mhm.
So I think one of my difficult conversations have been with my leads and skip leads when I have to prove that how critical my business team is or how critical for business my team is.
Mhm.
So it seems like we are that unimportant organ of the body, which is actually needed for the normal functioning. So how do you? I would say that that is my way of saying that if you take out this team, your business is going to collapse. And when they give you a number, and this has been a number of times with me, like I would like to document the business criticality or the business continuity processes,
Mhm.
which will fail if the team doesn't exist. And this has let me keep my team at 3 times from COVID till now. That uh, if we are not there, uh, a lot of business processes will not run. So I
Mhm.
think this has been important for me. And as a lead, I would also not get down from a particular number. Like you said, 3, it could be 4 or 5 for somebody.
Yeah.
And then I say, if you want to lay off, you cannot decrease more than that.
Mhm.
Otherwise, your business will not continue. So I think that has been something that I have been able to successfully do in last 3 years. Uh, on the other experience, which I could say that this is more also more about the visibility of your team. Most of the times, the data teams work in a background, so they are mastermind of all the KPIs that are running in the in the company, but no one knows how those KPIs are coming. So
Mhm.
if a KPI is growing up, you're having a bigger revenue, the product manager will get the credit, or maybe the salesperson will get the credit, but they would not give the credit of the team which made sure that these KPIs are possible in the first place. So I think it's very important as the leader of your team to make sure that visibility is also maintained in your organization.
Yeah. I think those are really valid points, and thank you very much also for sharing them. Yeah.
All right, then I think we can finish up the session. Thank you so much, Gabriela. It was super, super interesting. Yeah, and thanks also for the great participation. I think it was the best Q&A we had this year. And yeah, have a nice evening, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you very much, everyone.